let's start. Okay. So, Almarie, before we talk about board careers, tell us a bit about yourself. Originally, what drew you into the world of boardrooms, governance, and non-executive directorships?
That was passion that drew me into that. And that passion started almost like a small flame. When I was in Australia, I married an Australian, moved to Australia. And when you move to a country at first, you cannot work there. You have to wait for your visas and
Yeah.
all of those things to be approved before you can start to work.
Mm.
So clever me decided I'm starting to write, because when you're writing online, it's not strictly Australian work. So I started to write.
Yeah.
And in that
Mm.
way, people discovered me through my writing. And I wasn't writing about governance at all. But a company that works within governance contacted me and said, listen, can you write us a few things? Can you work with us?
Yeah.
And that little bit of writing sprouted into full-on business support, helping them and doing marketing for them. And eventually they expanded from Australia. I helped with the expansion to
Mm.
the
Mm.
UK and the US. And I got to know the world of governance so well. And I started working with different companies. Meanwhile, I became a granny and I moved back to South Africa, brought my Aussie husband, dragged him with
Mm.
me to South Africa. And
Mm.
this was at the end of 2014. So it's been a few years now. The grandson is like going to grade 8, no, 6. He's going to grade 6 now. So it's
Mm.
been a
Mm.
few years.
Mm.
But I realized that because I'm a grandmother, I think that was the actual starting point where I realized
Mm.
I need to make a change in this world. But how does one person make a change? And with my
Yeah.
passion for governance, I realized that board members serving on different levels on different level boards are the people who can make the difference. So it's
Mm.
not all
Mm.
to me. It's not, I don't have to solve every problem in this world. But every
Yeah.
board
Mm.
member that I
Mm.
help
Mm.
to get placed, every board member that at some point has something to do with me and starts to work with the board, and the board does something that causes
Mm.
something good
Yeah.
in this world. In a tiny
Mm.
way, I helped with that. So that is where my interest in governance started. And that's my passion. Every time I talk to someone, I can't help but in some way bring it back to my passion for boards and
Yeah.
helping people who sometimes don't even see themselves as board members. But when I see something in someone where I see they're a good person, they want to make positive change in this world, I want to help them. I want to help them get on a board so that they can flourish and these boards can flourish.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's quite interesting. And I see that you are internationally positioned and you've worked in Australia. And also, as I engage with you, I've heard you several times saying you're recruiting for African countries. It's quite interesting. You've got a footprint in the continent, isn't it?
Yes, yes. I've got quite a few clients across Africa, although many of them get placed internationally. For some reason, they like to be placed in Europe and especially the UK. So they contact me
Mm.
and then they ask to be placed internationally. And
I see. I
Africa has
see.
so much talent, but I would
Mm.
love to see more African talent grow boards
Mm.
in. That is something that I'm really looking towards working on even harder this year, because
Mm.
as much
Mm.
as there are board positions available in Africa, the pool of directors who serve on those boards are actually rather small, because
Mm.
you
I
find the
see.
same people serve on several boards, which is not
Mm.
wrong to me. Many of my clients um, build portfolio careers, but
Mm.
I would love to work with more African companies and
Mm. Mm.
organizations to help them get the right board members. Because as much as I work with African board members, most of them until now have chosen to ask for international board roles, which to me is all good and fine, but I want them to contribute to Africa more.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Now, in terms of board appointments, most people, they say you need to know someone, and I'm always trying to answer that, from your experience, how accurate is this perception that you need to know someone to get a board position? What's your perception on that?
As much as even in my course, I teach that when you look at the statistics, it says that around 67%, and now there are different studies and they do vary from study to study, but when you look at the really reliable studies, it's around 67% of board appointments are made either directly or indirectly via a connection. So building your network and getting people who are the stakeholders, who are the key holders to board appointments, that part is important. But I was involved with 2 big recruitments towards the end of last year. And from all of those people, only one, we appointed 6 people, and only one of them was actually someone I knew from before. The other 5 were completely cold applications. I didn't know them from before. Neither did anybody within the company. So they were raw talent that came, and we saw the talent, we saw what they could bring to the board, and really put them through the ringer with interviews and everything. So out of those 6, one was actually using, I could say, their network by talking with me to get them appointed. But the others, and some were my clients whom we had to say no to because there were other people who were more aligned to this company. So as much as your network is really important, and I want to encourage everybody to not only look at building their network, but what type of network are you building? Because having 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, but they are not connections that in any way can really enhance your opportunity of getting a board role, it's worth nothing. Someone can rather have 100 high quality connections than thousands of connections that keep their feed occupied, they keep their messages occupied, but at the end of the day, they can't help them get onto a board. So if someone wants to get onto a board, you need to build the right type of board connections. You need to really look at who are you connecting to and your reasons for connecting with these people. And the one thing that is important to me, don't be selfish. Don't only build your LinkedIn connections because you want the board role. You need to, at the end of the day, give as much as you receive. So while people are opening boardrooms for you, open something for them. Give something back. And that's important because we need to really think about the connections that we have, and we need to get back to humanity. We need to get back to not just taking, but also giving and building authentic relationships that will last, because you don't know that person might not have much value over the next 12 months, but 4 or 5 years down the line, that person might add real value to your career. So be authentic, but build the right type of connections that can actually help you and whom you know that you can help in some way.
Yes, thank you. I think it also applies to myself. I always say that be intentional about your connections. Quantity is good, but quality is better.
Exactly.
So I just want to ask the next question. From your experience, you've got years, managing, recruitment of board members. What are the most common mistakes that you see a professional seeking board positions making?
The most common mistake is not having a board-focused CV. I was talking last night, I was talking to a woman and she called me to ask why wasn't she appointed in one of our recruitment projects last year. And she's now looking for not just a board role, but also a job. And I went back to her application and I had a look. The CV was so focused on her executive career. And the board roles that she had was a tiny portion of her CV. And it was almost, if you didn't actually look for it, you would have missed it. And we probably missed it in the first round. So we didn't see that. We just saw, okay, she's got immense qualifications. She really has a good track record on an executive level, but nowhere does it speak to her abilities as a board member. And that is the important part. If your CV that you send in for board roles does not specifically show that you are more strategic than operational, or that you are looking for something more strategic than operational. So the language in your CV needs to change. And most of the time, the order of the CV needs to change. When I do a CV, I have the board profile, then I focus on successes. And someone actually called me Miss Success a while back because I'm so focused on successes because these boards want to know that you've done this before, that you know what you are doing.
Yes.
So I've got a board profile which speaks to both executive, but mostly to the ability to serve on a board. Then the next section is the successes, and then we list non-executive board roles and then executive board roles. And only then does it come to normal executive work. And then obviously your training, education, that kind of stuff. Because if you have your executive focus at the top, you scare boards in the sense that they think you're going to want to become operational because you frame yourself as someone operational and not as someone who can see the bigger picture and help with the decision making, help with drawing the map for the company instead of being the one who walks the path. You as a board member draw the map, or you, along with the rest of the board, you draw the map, but it's your executive team who's going to be the people who actually walk that path. The board member does not walk that path. And that is the biggest mistake that people make, is to think that my executive CV is fine. My branding as an executive is fine. I'm positioned as someone who's a competent executive, a competent seat, whether it be a CEO, CFO, legal mind, whatever. But they don't realize that to be a board member, they need to reframe that. Because not all CEOs make good board members. Not all CFOs make good board members. And your CV needs to speak to that, because unless someone, like you say, in your network introduces you, your CV is going to be the one thing that they see. It's the first introduction to them. So if your CV is not right, and along with that, basically all your application documents that you present to the companies, if that is not right, forget about it. You're not going to get the board role. You're really going to struggle a lot more.
And you, from my understanding, NED Careers, you also assist with creating board CVs, isn't it?
Yeah, that's part of what we do. Personally, and this might now be raising a few eyebrows. Personally, I do not like selling CVs, because at the end of the day, the CV alone is not what gets you the position. As much as the CV helps, people need to look at where they are in their career. And from there, we need to take them to get them onto a board. And oftentimes, people suffer from imposter syndrome, which is something that I really struggled with. There are still times, but I mean, I've been doing what I'm doing now for 13, almost 14 years, and I still suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes. But when it comes to boards, especially newer board members, they do not know how to position themselves. They do not know how to frame what they say, have that elevated pitch, so that when they introduce themselves to people, so those people know that, listen, I am looking for a board role. So that's where our 6 course comes in. And that's the one part of my work that, first of all, I think it comes from being a teacher, because before all of this, I used to teach high school mathematics. And I think it comes from that part of me. I really enjoy teaching people. And as much as the 6-week program is coaching, it's also teaching the exact step of what you need to take. But clients who have gone through that program actually have a much higher rate of appointment. I see our old clients that have done the program 2-3 years ago come back to me, and now they already have their 4th and their 5th board role. And with some of them, I actually have to say, whoa, listen, you are overburdening yourself now. Now you need to make a decision. Am I going to build a portfolio career, leave my day job, or am I going to lessen on the board work? So they get to that point where they have to do that. But with that course, and that is why I enjoy the course, is you learn about how to write your CV. We also still help with the CV and the application documents, but so many people that come onto the course don't even know what a supporting statement is. And supporting statements are so important when you apply for board roles. There are companies that won't look at your CV, they look at your supporting statement. If you don't even know what it is, how are you going to do that? How are you going to position yourself with that company if you don't know how to do a supporting statement? So we do CVs, we do your LinkedIn profile, because someone said to me the other day, the moment I worked on his LinkedIn profile, the moment that LinkedIn profile changed, suddenly he got these messages, he got all these calls. And now he has been appointed to 2 boards now. And that's just in the span of 2 months. He's been appointed to 2 boards, and he's got ongoing interviews. So it does make a difference. So we do CVs, we do LinkedIn profiles, but personally, I do not like doing those only, because you can sit with the best CV, but then don't know how to present yourself in an interview, or just get people to know that you are looking for board roles. And that's where our other services come in.
Yeah, you are right, Marie. Your CV is very, very crucial, because that is your front office. You know, that's the first impression they want to get about you. Even as they read your CV, what is the first thing they're going to read? It matters, because it's going to determine, are they going to continue or they're going to just throw it away? So all that really matters. I'm glad you're mentioning that. Now, you also mentioned that your LinkedIn profile matters. Believe me, Almarie, I've seen people wanting to be in boards. Their LinkedIn profile, there's not even a picture on it.
Exactly.
Someone, sorry to say this, has had a wedding picture on a LinkedIn profile. And I'm saying, what is this? So can you talk about the LinkedIn profile, how important it is for board positions?
LinkedIn profiles are so important, especially when you are starting to look at international board roles. More and more companies are moving away from CVs, are not even asking for a CV. I work with a company in Europe where they help companies find board members. And they often ask me, listen, we're looking for someone with an African point of view or something like that. Or they'll just randomly send me stuff and say, do you have someone? Because they know I've got national members. They have never asked for a CV, never. The only thing they ask for is the person's LinkedIn link. And then in some cases, the company, because they work a lot of times, they work with startups. In some cases, these companies will ask for a cover letter or a motivational letter. but
mm,
they want the LinkedIn profile.
mm,
If your LinkedIn does not speak to what your CV would have spoken to as far as board positions, it's worth nothing. You are literally throwing money in the water if you are, if you just have, there are people with premium profiles that pay for these profiles, and then there's not a picture on it. There's no keywords. When it comes to education, and please, this is a big peeve of mine, is when people write they studied at the School of Life. People, if you are brief, you are studying at the School of Life, so please remove that from your LinkedIn profile. But your LinkedIn profile needs to correspond with your board CV. I am not a proponent of putting your picture on your board CV for various reasons that takes too long to even explain. That takes almost a whole session of some of my courses. But your LinkedIn profile has to have the keywords, first of all, that recruiters use. Because more and more recruiters are using LinkedIn to find board members. They don't even advertise anywhere else. There's a package called the LinkedIn Recruiter. They sign up for that package, and they have more information about you than someone else who just goes onto LinkedIn and runs through a few profiles. And with that LinkedIn Recruiter, they see so much. But the first thing they do is they type in the keywords that they are looking for.
Yes.
And if those keywords do not come up somewhere in your profile, you are not going to be seen by them.
Yes.
So your visibility is crucial, and you gain that visibility by writing the right keywords that recruiters who recruit for board positions, the keywords that they look for. Your LinkedIn profile has to include that, not necessarily in the headline, although the headline is terribly important, but LinkedIn almost, their algorithm works a lot like Google's algorithm, and it will search the whole page. So even if it's somewhere under the work that you've done, even under volunteering that you use a specific keyword, it does make a difference, and that causes people to see you. And please, when it comes to pictures, a headshot of you alone. I've had people who they meet someone who they adore this person, and unless it's Nelson Mandela that you make, so everybody knows you. Please put just your own picture, and don't put the picture of your whole family. Like you said, wedding pictures. Pictures around the Christmas tree with all your grandchildren. Put that on your Facebook profile. Go put that on Twitter, or what do they call it nowadays? X. Put that anywhere else. But your LinkedIn profile is your professional platform. You don't take your whole family with the Christmas tree to work. If you wouldn't take something to work, it doesn't belong on your LinkedIn profile.
Yes.
So that's something to me that's terribly important. And if people need help with their LinkedIn profiles, please give me a call, because I'm so through LinkedIn, I see all these, just there's no picture. It's like, I call it eggheads that's on LinkedIn.
Yes.
I feel sorry for them. I'm like, oh, please put a proper picture and a recent picture. Don't put a picture on there when you were 17 and now you are 57. And when people then meet you on Zoom in person, they're like, this is not the person we were looking at, So recent picture, usually no more than 2 years old. And if you can afford a professional picture being taken, do that. But I've seen people just crop themselves out of a nice family picture and just use that, and it looks fine, as long as it's and as long as when they meet you, they're not suddenly stunned by, whoa, but who's this person? It has to look like you.
Yes. I always have this as well. People see we engage on LinkedIn, and when we meet, they always say, you look exactly like in your picture.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's important because it builds trust. If you, another thing, one mistake that many business owners make is to put the business logo as their profile picture.
Oh, yes, I've seen that.
Do not do that on your personal LinkedIn profile. Your business logo belongs on your business page. On your business page, post your logo, post banners, post anything you want. But on your LinkedIn profile, it has to be a picture of yourself. And also that banner that's behind you, make use of that. If people go on my LinkedIn, the first thing they see is the banner, and it immediately is what I do. So it takes them a split second to know what I do. Where many people leave that banner out, and that's wasted space. That is like you have a farm, but you're not doing anything with the farm.
It's real estate. Yeah, real estate. Use it.
Exactly. Plant something. Make people curious so that they will stay on your profile, so that they'll actually read through it. So pique some interest, do something, and but always keep it professional. Don't post something that is not professional on LinkedIn. It's not a dating site. That's the worst thing. Is I've come across people trying to use LinkedIn almost like a dating site, and be careful of scammers on LinkedIn, because unfortunately that has started happening. LinkedIn is quite good in comparison with your other platforms, in that once it is reported to them, they act really quickly, like within probably less than an hour, they'll remove that profile. But do be careful about that as well, that people do not contact you and say, oh, we have a board role for you, but you have to pay this much, and then we can help you get on a board. Please just know there are scammers out there using LinkedIn as well.
Yeah. Almarie, you mentioned something, I caught it. You talked about value proposition, but you said it in passing. Now, why is it critical before applying for a board role to know your board value proposition? Why is it so important?
If you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you can add to a board, how are you going to convince a board? So that's why when I start working with a client, the first things I do is to help them find what it is that they can bring to a board. And oftentimes clients after the second session usually tell me, well, when I did the homework, because I have a lot of work, these sessions that I do, it's intensive, and I'm a real teacher, I give them tons of homework to do. But it helps them to uncover who they are and what they can actually add to a board. And once you can verbalize or write down your value proposition, once you can say, this is what I bring to a board that others don't. The moment you can do that, that question you always get asked, why should we appoint you? And I've never sat in an interview with that question. It's always asked, why should we appoint you to this board? If you cannot answer that question, don't even bother applying, because you're wasting your time. Rather, find a board where your value proposition aligns with the values of the company or with the organization, and where you know that the value you bring will enhance this board. When you can speak to that, you're almost certain of getting a board role. Then you are certain of that role that you are going after, as long as you don't think, okay, it's my first board role and I'm going to be chairperson of a Fortune 500 company. You need to be realistic as well. But the moment you've nailed your value proposition down as far as board roles are concerned and your value to boards, and you can verbalize that to them, you've done it. And that's also, that's an integral part of that about section on your LinkedIn profile. You can even use it, it's a short sentence. You can use it in the tagline on your LinkedIn, and you definitely have to use it in your profile at the top of your board CV. So that must be the first thing that people read about you, because that is the sentence that's going to convince them, okay, this person is worth reading further and actually having a deeper look at their CV.
Yes, because you are marketing yourself. So your profile should market yourself, saying those things right up front, so that the readers can continue to scroll down and continue to read.
Yes. And, we all grew up with, oh, you mustn't think too much about yourself. You mustn't, play small. We can't afford in today's economy to play small. And if you want to make a contribution to boards and to changing this world, because honestly, I'm on a mission to change this world. And if you want to do that, you need to play big. And you need to be upfront about what you bring. If you cannot do that, then stay at home. Don't bother, because you're going to waste your money and you're going to waste your time. You cannot just be quiet and timid, and
it doesn't help you. When I'm training Almarie, I say that you go there and show off all the good that you have, your skills, your show off, there is no benefit in being small, and that won't help you, you have to show off what you can do, how you're going to turn around the organization, what you're going to offer, so it's about marketing yourself.
And something that someone once said to me is, no, but I don't want to give them too much in an interview. I don't want to give them solutions to problems. And that is how you get them. If you are in and you have done your research, because research is another thing that I'm very passionate about. You have to do research about the board role and about the company and about a whole lot of things before you even start your application, and then definitely before you. If you've done your research properly, you will know what pain points within that business is and what potholes there are ahead of them. Go into that interview and give them the solutions. Tell them, through my research, I've uncovered this and this and this. Sometimes it's things that they aren't even aware of.
Yes, on their blind spot.
Having that foresight, plus have the answer to that, having whatever needs to fill that pothole.
Yes.
By you doing that, you are going to stand out above every other person being interviewed, and I can assure you, you'll get that board position. So give, and like you say, you brag, you show off, you because they need to. They don't want to. Business wants to appoint people who are going to sit there and play small and beat them in. Businesses need strong people on their boards, and therefore you need to show your strength. And whatever strength you show, that's why you will be appointed.
Right. Thanks. I think we are doing very well. Now, we're almost getting to the end, but before we go to the end, I just want to ask one question or two about diversity and access. We've seen some boards saying they're struggling in terms of finding the right candidates for diversity, whether it's by race, by gender, by age. They said they're struggling to get the right person. Why do you think these organizations struggle? Before you answer that, I've got a second question. What about the new directors who are coming in? Someone who say, no, I don't have experience. I don't think now I can't get a good board position because I don't have experience. Now it's a chicken egg situation. You need experience to get a position. And what do you do? So I want you to speak to those two.
Well, to me, diversity is much wider than people think.
Yeah,
we need more of thought on boards. We are looking at obviously DEI, which is so important, and obviously in not only South Africa, because we think about diversity in a South African context, and especially in the context of color, of race, and of gender. But diversity goes so much deeper than that, because you've got diversity of religion, we've got diversity of culture, obviously. You've got diversity of skills. You've got diversity
of age.
Age. And if you have a board that everybody's white male over 65, you're in trouble in this new world, because you are gonna get your business sunk because they don't know what 30-year-olds know. So companies need to look at what their needs for the future really is. And if they can pinpoint those needs, they can see, okay, this is what we need to look at. This is what we need to appoint. And in that manner, they are also going to give people who do not have previous board experience the opportunity to get onto.
Exactly.
Because we are so focused on previous board experience. And if you look at any board advertisement, I would say at least 80%, if not 90%. The first thing they say is so many years board experience. And like you say, it's a chicken and egg situation. And they miss out on talent by doing that, because they are so focused on previous board experience that they do not realize that who they actually need is someone with experience beyond board experience. That doesn't include, if you've got a board with 8 members or 7 members, and 2 of them have specific board experience, so they know how a board meeting needs to run, they know that board. People can learn how a board meeting works. People can learn the governance side of it. But you can't suddenly teach me ICT. You can't suddenly teach me what's going to happen if this business has a big hack and all their systems are down. They need people with that type of expertise. Marketing, for instance, has changed. When we studied and what we learned about marketing does not count anymore.
No, it won't help you.
It doesn't work.
A few months ago, I looked at my books that I studied masters. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work.
Most of mine, I actually donated some of my books to a bookstore here, and the guy, it just so happens we belong to the same book club, and he's got this bookstore that sells second-hand books. So I thought we need to get rid of a few things, and I realized I'm never going to use this again. So I took it to him. And about 2 months later at the book club meeting, he said to me, will you be okay if I take that and just have it shredded? Because nobody's going to buy it. Because nothing in those books actually carry value anymore. Because those books don't talk to the way marketing and sales are done nowadays. The world has changed too much. And therefore, if you look at what experience does this person bring that can bring value to this company, and that will open the doors for more younger people, but it also opens the doors, even if someone is older, but has experience in a specific field. So boards need to start focusing more on skills, and automatically that will bring a level of diversity, because over the past, how many years, let me do my math now, 27 years, that we have been a democracy in South Africa, people have been able to study in different fields. So it's not only, we do not only have white lawyers anymore. We do not only have male doctors anymore. All of those things have opened up. So look at the skills that this person brings. If they do have previous board experience, wonderful. That is an extra. But let that be a bonus rather than the prerequisite. Because otherwise your board is always going to look the same. And you're going to stagnate. It's like water standing still stagnates. And if the board doesn't grow in different directions, it's going to stagnate and As a result, the company is going to suffer. So
yes,
when you look at skills, when you're more skills focused, you tend to bring diversity automatically, as well as open the door to people who do not have previous board experience.
Yes,
I hope
yes.
that
I want to
answers it.
summarize what you've just said. You need a board that will lead the organization into the future, not where we have passed. It's gone. We can't go back.
Exactly.
But where are we going? What does the future look like? And then we put a board that takes the organization into that future.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's forward looking, not backward looking.
Exactly. And that's an important point, is that the board first needs to know what they need to know their future. They need to set goals for their future. And they also have to look at the world in a broader perspective. And once they know that, once they can see that and realize, listen, but we need expertise in IT, for instance. That's the one that always comes to mind when we talk about the newer world. But it's a lot more than that. It's not just IT. It's even the way HR has developed. Because if an HR person nowadays don't know the new systems, because I heard a whole list of acronyms the other day of systems that HR nowadays use. I was thinking, someone who studied HR 15, 20 years ago, do they know those systems? So people need to continuously upgrade themselves. We need to become lifelong learners. Nobody can say, oh, but I've got a degree, I'm fine. If you've got your degree in the 90s or earlier, it's not worth anything anymore, because what you learned there does not contribute really to boards nowadays. So keep on learning, keep on updating yourself in your field, and diversify. That is not just for boards. That is, in the world of work nowadays, the more skills you have, the more diverse your range of skills you can bring to a board. So that even if a board is looking for someone with financial abilities, if you can, along with the financial abilities, bring other abilities as well, even if you have some an HR background or some insight into ICT or something like that. Every little thing that you can add to a board can convince them that you are the person to be appointed.
That's powerful words. Yeah, good advice. We just want to end this conversation. It's been a lot of good stuff that you've been mentioning. But the last word from you, any message for those who are aspiring and even serving in boards? What's your final message?
To those who are serving, I want to say, do your best. Do not see a board role just as an income, an additional income, or the gravitas it adds to your CV. Because at the end of the day, you need to have passion for that board role. If you do not wake up in the morning and you're excited about going to that board meeting because you are passionate about what that company does and what the board contributes to that company, you are going to burn out. You're not going to be able to sustain what you are doing. And for the young ones who are up and coming, is believe in yourself, because everybody has something they can contribute to a board. Everybody. I've never met a person who has nothing, where I have to say, oh, there's no way you can do it. I've never met anybody like that. But you need to be realistic about your goals. You cannot think that within your first board role, you are going to, or within your first appointment, you are going to immediately sit on a Fortune 500 company and you are going to be on a person of committees and it's going to be so wonderful. It happens that a first board role is, but those are the outliers. Most people will start on a not-for-profit board, where
Yes.
it is sometimes easier to get the board role, but the one thing I want to ask is do not take a not-for-profit board role simply as a stepping stone to another board role, because not-for-profit organizations also need people who are passionate and people who care about what they do there. And wherever you serve, whether it is on a not-for-profit committee somewhere, or whether it is on a Fortune 500 companies board, care about what you do, care about what you contribute, and care about the board. Because if you bring compassion and care to a board, you will be successful. And what you bring will cause that board and that company to be successful. And that is where I come in, and where if you are successful and that board is successful, I've reached my goal, because then you're going to change the world. So please change the world so that I can sleep at night.
Thank you so much, Aumari. Aumari is a board career coach at NED Careers. She has got extensive experience in putting people on boards. So if you want to get into a board, I think she is the person to see. I will say that in my own words. But thank you so much, Aumari, for this interview. It was exciting. And I believe the listeners and viewers are going to, coming to you. And but anyway, we'll give them your contact details. Thank you so much, Aumari.
Thank you so much.